Hi all, I need to build some things with villagers, everybody's least favourite thing in the game. So I'm going to dedicate an entire episode to building up all of the different things that I can with them, with the exception of a trading hall as they're going to be updating it soon, and I want to play around with that in the future. And one of those things is going to be a food farm, because I am fed up with eating pork chops. But first, I need to expand my basement underneath my house. And to do this, I used the beacon I got in the previous episode, along with all of the gold I got from my pigman farm. Well, here we are. It's safe to say that I expanded the basement quite a bit. That beacon was certainly very useful, and in the end what I did is I brought the floor down by 3 blocks and then I pushed all of the walls out towards the shoreline, as you can see around here. So this is now the exact same shape as it is on top. And so I also modified the ladder just a little bit because I could. I moved the portal, and I've also managed to expand my temporary storage by making use of all of the shulker shells that I got from my shulker farm that I made in the previous episode, and I used them to put together a bunch more shulker boxes, which just enables me to compact everything. So I've got loads of full shulker boxes of items that I've collected here, as well as partially filled ones, non-stackables, my ores, I've got plants in here as well, and loads of other various things which we will one day sort out into a storage system. But for now we're going to be working down here. As you can see, I made everything covered in stone just to make it look nice. Do you remember when everything used to look like this? Those were the good old days. But there is one exception to that, and that is this line up here. Now you may be wondering what this is. This actually marks out the spawn chunk borders. So this right here is within the spawn chunks, and this is not. And the reason for this, as you may have guessed, is the first thing that I want to do with my villagers is create a mob switch. Now, if you don't know what that is, or how you would need villagers to make it, I'll be explaining that all very shortly. But in order to build this, I'm also going to be using a small schematic that I have right here. And I'm really chuffed with how small I was able to compact this thing. I'm going to sort of show it off in action just after I build it. So I'm going to get to doing that, and I'm also going to explain how these things work. So in your world you have something that is called a mob cap, and that is the amount of mobs that can spawn in your world until the game decides to stop spawning them to stop lag from happening. And per player that is 70, so on my single player world that would just be 70. And in your world you want to make sure that you have 70 mobs that are loaded constantly in order for this to work, as that will disable the ability for more mobs to spawn. And there are two main methods of doing this. The first one is what I'm doing, which is where you use your spawn chunks, which always load entities depending on which chunks you put them in. You can look that up on the internet. Or the second alternative is using a portal chunk loader, which effectively recreates a smaller version of what the spawn chunks is. And so in theory this should be really simple. Just throw a bunch of zombies into your spawn chunks, name them, give them an item, put them in a minecart or something so they don't despawn, and it's job done. However, it does get more complicated than that, as once you do any of those things, such as naming the mob, they don't count towards the mob cap. And so that's where the more complicated mobs come into play, as some don't despawn but still count towards the mob cap. And those are things like withers, shulkers, I know there's a silverfish method you can use, or you can use what I think is the easier method, and that is villagers you've traded with that are zombified. And so what this does is it basically just enables me to have 70 of those in the small contraption, and it pushes them from inside or outside as per your will. And what I built on top was effectively just a mechanism that allows me to temporarily breed the villagers, trade with them and zombify them to get them into the contraption itself. And so I'm proud to present my very own little mob switch. This is a design I came up with myself, and it used to be a lot larger, but I recently tried to optimize it and I had no idea just how small I could make this thing. So this is how it works. You've got 3 chambers full of water on one side, which is inside the spawn chunks, and then on the other side you have the same thing mirrored, and that's just to store all of the mobs. As you know, there is entity cramming, and so if there's more than 24 in one block, they're going to die. Now you can of course use ladders or vines and tricks like this to stop that from happening, but since we're going to be moving them, that's not practical, and that is why there's 3 here. The cool thing about this design is it's effectively tileable, so you could expand this for a multiplayer server, and what you do is you flick the lever and the water switches places, and it's just low enough so that when the mobs move over they don't take any fall damage or anything like that, they don't drown. It's super fast, super clean, and oh yeah, it's so nice. The way this works is that the lever changes the trapdoor and it changes the state of these bamboo, and this is basically a method to instantly transmit a redstone signal upwards, as these deservers are going to be detecting it, and they power these 3 blocks over here, which of course in turn powers the dispensers, which removes or takes the water away. And then the one thing that made this so compact was that because there's actually this gap over here where the signs would be, it enabled me, instead of raising these higher up, to put the observer here, as raising these up isn't practical as you need that space on top for the villagers to move. And yeah, I mean, look how compact this thing is. And you'll notice up there I do not have the slab on top, as there is also a top section that I made for this thing. Excuse me, cat. And here it is. So what this is a villager breeder, which is a super simple design. It's basically a single plot of farmland here. You put one in which is a farmer and then just another random one. You leave them in there, they do their thing, and the baby will try and get over to these beds, but fall through the trapdoors and into this, which is a really simple baby villager sorter, I guess you would call it. So it's pretty tricky to sort out the ones that are fully grown and aren't, but this is a super simple method if you want to use it yourself. And so you just want to have it so that there's a water stream that takes them underneath these 2 slabs, and then when they grow up they will basically be caused to float upwards or swim upwards in this water, which will move them over to here. And of course this doesn't have to be a 1x1 slot, but that is very appropriate for what I've got set up here. And so the way this works, I actually need to get a minecart first. Okay, so the way this works is you would have your villagers waiting in here, and then let's imagine we picked one up. You would wait for the villager to get his trade. I like to use fletching tables as you only need to trade with them once, and the fletching tables enable me to use sticks to trade with. Hello. And I have a witch farm, which means I have loads of sticks that I don't need, and we're going to be doing 70 trades, and it's usually like half a stack of sticks or something ridiculous, so that's just very appropriate for me, but of course you can do whatever you want. And so you would stand on this side, do your trade, push the first button, which is going to temporarily open the trapdoor and move him in front of what would be a zombie villager that we need to get in here. So you would trade or let him zombify him, and then up here you would press the next button and it would send it off into one of the 3 columns. At the moment I have this one selected, but you could turn that off and turn this one on, which is kind of a funny situation because we've got some bud powering going on here, but that's how you would get that one to work. And then that is interesting, isn't it? And then it goes round and it automatically picks a new one up and you can repeat the process. And so what I need to do now is just collect this zombie, which ironically is quite hard, as this, if you haven't already seen the first episode, is actually a mushroom island. So I'll have to make a little platform a little bit away. And then I'll also get the 2 villagers that I have over at the villager place I made previously. Alright, well this should be the final villager right here. So let's trade with this guy. Send him down one last time. There we are. And so let's drop the last few down. And let's check the counter to see if we've definitely got 24. Yep, that is a good sign. Let's go check them out. Starting to get noisy down here, which is also a good sign. And this was the one we just did right here, and it looks good. Let's go ahead and test the redstone on this. Whoa, look at him go. And there we go, with no difficulty whatsoever, except for this guy who's a little bit fussy, but they have all fallen down. Oh, that's perfect. And let's hit this one more time. Effectively turn it on. So I guess now the only thing to do is wait for it to be night, head out and see if this thing's working. Oh, it looks like it's working. Oh, that's amazing. Look at this. No more mobs. This is going to be very useful for a hardcore world, I'll tell you that. I went and kept this section over here with a bunch of spare villagers, as I now want to transport these guys over to the other mushroom island so that I can begin working on another farm. So I was just editing, and unfortunately I realised that is where the editing software decided to crash. However, fortunately you didn't miss much. I managed to get them all over here safe and sound. So now we can move on to the next project. This right here is the food farm that I mentioned earlier. It's a design by Ilmango, who I will leave a link to in the description. And basically the goal of this is to get golden carrots as my new food source, as they have the highest saturation. Now there are several methods of getting them. I know that you can also use trading. However, I prefer to craft them, as I just think it's a little bit more creative, and it's a little bit silly to just overuse the villagers to get all of your tools, all of your books, all of your food. You know, I like to sort of branch out into different methods for this game, otherwise it gets a bit boring. And so I already have a really efficient gold farm, which means all I need now is carrots. And this villager-based food farm produces exactly that, plus it has the potential to produce potatoes and bread. However, since I have no use for them, I'm just going to be filling this thing to the brim with carrots. The way this farm works is that the farmer villagers collect up all of the crops, and then they try and throw it to another villager, I guess in an attempt to breed with them. However, the items get stolen through hopper minecarts, and you collect the items, and therefore they never end up breeding, which would be quite an issue. But I really like this design because it's very compact and it doesn't use up many villagers. It has a method of cramming 4 farms around a single villager, which makes it really efficient. Plus you can stack it. I only did 2, but you can literally do loads of these and it can produce items so fast. That is why I decided to add a shulker box loader underneath, as I do plan on regularly keeping this on, AFKing it and using the items throughout my world, as I want this to be my main food source. So I managed to get all of the villagers in. However, unfortunately I missed this on camera as well, as it seemed like my storage was full and that was the issue. So hopefully we won't have any more trouble. But effectively what I did is I closed off the middle bits and then brought these guys in on the side over here so that they don't get distracted and they pick the trade that we want. And then I went and dropped in 2 hopper minecarts and a villager for this floor and the lower floor, of course. So what I'm going to do now is just try and make sure this guy doesn't escape, and also remove all of these, and the farm should be functional. And of course the final thing that I need to do is actually get the filter working over here. That should do the trick. And then we'll go ahead and fill this thing up with some shulkers, and we'll see how far this number goes up. So I'm going to go ahead and sleep, and then hopefully once it's daytime these villagers should start doing their thing and we'll get to see it in action. There we go. And there's some more. So any carrots that these farmers collect, they should throw to this villager right here. And finally, let's see if they're being collected at the bottom. Yep. Oh, that's perfect. So while I waited for this thing to produce a few more items, I set about building one last farm in this world, and that is a quick starter temporary iron farm. Now I have found a really big, awesome, super efficient design that I want to build in this world. However, I'm not quite ready to make it, and I'm just sick of going mining for iron ore, so I figured I need something temporary to keep me going in the meantime. This is a design I came up with myself, and it's really nothing special. It's basically just the core mechanics of an iron farm in a compact little design. But what makes this stand out, although it is similar to a lot of things you'll find on YouTube, is it takes advantage of the mechanic where the villagers will only spawn an iron golem after a certain amount of time since they last sensed one within their sort of zone that they can see them in. And so basically what that means is the quicker you get rid of the iron golem, the quicker your farm is. And most of the small ones like this have it so that the iron golem dies just above the villagers, and that really slows it down. So I basically just made it so that they fall down into a water pool below, and that speeds the farm up quite a bit. And so I do have a schematic for this along with all of the other farms that I showcased in today's video, and if you're interested in getting your hands on them, they are available in the description. So this time around I want to actually make a point of showing how I get everything into this farm, as last time it completely failed. So I'm just going to build this bridge of dirt until I find a biome that a zombie can spawn in, as we're going to need one of these to scare the villagers. And now to turn off the mob switch. And now it's turning daytime, so we might as well do the villagers while we wait. Okay, let's send this off and see if it works. There is our villager, so hopefully he should just fall straight in, really. Wonderful, and he's already got his trade. So what we're going to do is just redirect this into the next one, and we'll do that for all three of them. I need the minecart. And now to clear all of this stuff away for the third time today. Alright, we have about 10 minutes to get a zombie to spawn. Ooh, we have some skeletons. Oh, here we are. Why does that not work? Ah! There we go. And then we'll go ahead and name this guy so that he doesn't despawn. Just like that. And we'll go ahead and turn the mob switch back on. Go ahead and break away all of the dirt. Finally, to make this farm operational, we should just have to place this torch here. And they should start freaking out. And I'm going to wait here and just see if we can... Ah, there you go, we got an iron golem. Excellent. He's going to go ahead and burn in here. And theoretically, we should get our first bit of automated iron. And there we are. It also doubles as a rose farm. And so let's go ahead and check how many carrots we've gotten just in the time that it took to make this farm. It looks like it's broken here. I think it's because we didn't have a shulker box in here originally, we just put it in the barrel. So let's take these away. Yep, there we go, that's basically fixed it. And I've broken it. So you can't do that, but there we go, we got an entire full box. So that is amazing. Now, since I've actually made everything that I need for today's episode, I don't actually need the iron from this farm. However, it's going to be very, very useful for the future. So what I'm going to do is head over to the gold farm and see if I can make some carrots before I call it a day. I guess I should probably clean up all the mess I made over in the nether side as well. Now, you may have noticed that in this episode I've had a ton of XP, and that is because in between episodes I've done an absolute ton of AFKing over here at the gold farm. So we have lots of gold, and then we even have some shulker boxes filling up with all of the bartering items as well. Why is there a gravel in this one? And that's how much of these items we have. So in the end, that's 8 shulker boxes of nuggets I used up crafting this lot, and now we finally have a bunch of food. Let's go ahead and take away the old food box and get some dyes from my new dyes box and make this a yellow shulker box, which I think would be very fitting. And now we have an infinite source of food.